Hey, it's Steve, Kyler, and Alex Kennedy. It's Hoopsworld TV. Now, AK, a lot's been talked about in terms of who the power teams are. In your mind, who are some of the teams and maybe players that are a little underrated?
When you talk about underrated teams, you have to talk about the San Antonio Spurs. It seems like every single year they enter the season, no one's really talking about them. And then when the playoffs come around, they're one of the best teams in the league. I think especially this year with all the movement we've had in the Western Conference, with the Lakers getting better, with the Thunder having another year of experience under their belt, the Clippers getting better. I mean, really everyone's talking about these other teams, but the Spurs are still a contender. They're still a team that has all of their talent coming back. I think people forget how good they were at the end of last season until that series against the Thunder. For a while there, it was looking like they weren't going to lose a game, much less a series. So, they bring back their big three of Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan. Kawhi Leonard comes back, has a regular offseason, a normal training camp under his belt. Greg Popovich has been praising him lately. So, this team is still very scary, and they still have to be considered as a top team in the Western Conference. Even though the Lakers look like the best team on paper right now, the Clippers have gotten better, the Thunder are still scary. The Spurs are a very good team, and they've been very underrated throughout the last few months.
On my side, I kind of look at it and I go, it's easy to talk about the championship contenders. And I think the dark horse in the East is probably the Philadelphia 76ers. There's not a bigger team in the NBA right now than the Sixers. If you look at their, the six guys they could trot out at center. But there's another team in the East that we always think of as, the little engine that couldn't, and that's the Milwaukee Bucks. And when you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, you've got Brandon Jennings, who can be an impact point guard. If he can figure out how to get consistent on a night in and night out basis, watch out, because he has shown you in glimpses that he can be an amazing player. You pair him with a Monte Ellis. Monte is buckets. He's going to score buckets all day. Ersan Ilyasova was the guy nobody talked about, but he got a huge payday. They had a decent draft. They've got a lot of young emerging bigs, and they've got a head coach that wants to play defense and wants to play aggressive. Now the question becomes, will it all work? Will it all fit? Because generally the lifespan of a Scott Skiles coach team's about 2.5 seasons. Well, guess what? We're about 2.5 seasons. Nobody has a contract really beyond this year in Milwaukee. So there really is kind of an all in or we're gone kind of mentality. And I think you see it from a lot of guys, and talking to them off the record and hearing what they have to say. They know that if they don't get into the playoffs and they don't start to make some noise, that this team's probably going to get broken up in a lot of different ways. Coaching staff, front office, a lot of guys aren't getting contract extensions. So there is a all or nothing kind of thing. And I like a team that has nothing guaranteed tomorrow. Those are the teams that tend to surprise you a little bit. But AK, as you look at teams, who's a guy in your mind that's maybe being a little underrated? That guy that, why is it he could be that guy this year? Why isn't he getting more respect?
I have to go with Kevin Love. Even though he's gotten more credit and more recognition in recent years, he's someone who is one of the best players in the game.
Kevin Love?
Exactly. He's elite. He dominates the boards. He's gotten better offensively, gotten better defensively. I think he's probably the best power forward in the game right now. Maybe LaMarcus Aldridge gives him a run for his money, but, Love is definitely a player to watch this year. He's someone who, if he takes that next step, the Timberwolves could be a very scary team. They may be an underrated team that we're not talking about very much. I really don't think that Love gets the credit he deserves for the way he impacts the game on both ends of the court. So, I have to go with him. I think he's someone who's made huge strides in recent years, and while he's getting a little bit more credit, people don't realize the impact that he has on games. Who do you think is the most underrated player in the league?
I wouldn't say most underrated, because there are a couple. I don't understand why everybody's not getting on board with Chris Bosh at center. Remember, this guy was an all-star at center for Toronto forever. It's not like he can't play the 5 spot. So I like Chris Bosh a lot more at center than I do at power forward. But there's a guy that, maybe he's not going to change the fortune of the franchise, and that's Ben Gordon. You remember a couple of years ago, Ben Gordon was lights out. He was Mr. Sixth Man. He was the guy you did not want to see in the crunch. You look at it now in this situation, and look, Detroit never became what Ben hoped it would be, and that thing's been dysfunctional for a lot more players other than Ben Gordon. I love Ben Gordon in this Charlotte Bobcats situation. I love Ben Gordon with a coach like Mike Dunlap, and I think Ben Gordon is going to do a lot of really good things. I mean, think about Derrick Rose coming in as a rookie. He was a little timid. He didn't want the shine. He didn't want to be that guy. And Ben Gordon's influence on Derrick Rose, he talked about it a lot his rookie year. I think the influence that BG is going to have on all of these young Charlotte Bobcats, and look, the guy can flat out score. So I don't think he's going to make the Charlotte Bobcats a playoff team, but I don't think that people are talking about, they look at Ben Gordon as more of a salary dump for the Detroit Pistons. I think it's a quality pickup for the Charlotte Bobcats. I'm Steve Kyler. He's Alex Kennedy. This is Hoopsworld TV.